Foraging, the practice of harvesting edible plants, fruits, and other natural resources in city environments, has been around for centuries. Yet, as more people embrace sustainability and reconnect with nature, foraging has gained significant attention. Despite its growing popularity, urban foraging is shrouded in misconceptions, from concerns about legality to fears of poisoning. These myths often deter curious individuals from exploring this rewarding activity. In this article, we'll debunk the most common myths about urban foraging and shed light on the truths that make it an accessible, safe, and enriching experience. Myth 1. Urban foraging is illegal everywhere. One of the most pervasive myths about urban foraging is that it is illegal across the board. While there are restrictions, the truth is more nuanced. In many cases, urban foraging is perfectly legal as long as you respect private property and local ordinances. The reality: in public parks and green spaces, many municipalities permit foraging for non-commercial purposes. However, specific rules vary by location. For instance, in some cities, harvesting fallen fruit or wild herbs from public spaces is allowed, while picking from ornamental plants or damaging trees is prohibited. A responsible approach: always check local laws before foraging and practice ethical harvesting. Seek permission if you're on private property and never take more than you need. Ethical foraging ensures that plants can regenerate and wildlife can also benefit from the ecosystem's offerings. Myth 2. Urban plants are too polluted to be safe. Concerns about pollution often discourage people from urban foraging. City air, soil, and water can be sources of contamination, leading many to assume that any plant growing in an urban setting is unsafe to eat. The reality: while pollution is a valid concern, it doesn't render all urban plants inedible. Many edible plants, like dandelions, purslane, and elderberries, thrive in urban environments and can be safe if gathered responsibly. The key lies in choosing clean foraging locations and properly washing your finds. Safety tips: avoid areas near busy roads, industrial zones, or sites where pesticide use is common. Opt for parks, community gardens, and neglected lots with visibly healthy plant life. Wash your harvest thoroughly with water and, if necessary, use a food-safe cleaning solution. Myth 3. You need to be an expert to forage. Foraging can seem daunting to beginners, with fears of misidentification and poisoning, fueling the myth that only seasoned experts can do it safely. The reality: while knowledge is essential, you don't need to be a botanist to forage. Many beginner-friendly plants are easy to identify and have no toxic lookalikes. For instance, dandelions, clover, and mint are safe and abundant in urban settings. Starting your foraging journey: begin with a field guide or smartphone app that provides clear images and descriptions of local plants. Join foraging workshops or walks led by experienced foragers to gain hands-on experience. Focus on a small number of easy-to-identify plants before expanding your repertoire. Myth 4. Urban foraging depletes natural resources. Critics of urban foraging sometimes argue that it harms the environment by depleting local ecosystems of their natural resources. The reality: when done responsibly, foraging can be sustainable and even beneficial. Harvesting invasive species like garlic mustard or Japanese knotweed, for instance, helps restore balance to local ecosystems. Moreover, ethical foraging practices emphasize leaving enough for wildlife and plant regeneration. Best practices: follow the rule of thirds. Take only a third of what's available, leave a third for wildlife, and allow the remaining third to regenerate. Avoid uprooting plants unless they're invasive and won't harm the ecosystem. Share knowledge about sustainable practices with fellow foragers. Myth 5. Forage foods are bland and boring. Another common misconception is that forage foods are limited in variety and taste unremarkable. The reality: urban foraging introduces a world of flavors that are often overlooked. From the tangy zest of wood sorrel to the nutty crunch of acorns, foraged foods can add complexity and uniqueness to your meals. Many chefs incorporate foraged ingredients into gourmet dishes for this very reason. Culinary inspiration. Use dandelion greens in salads or saute them with garlic for a flavorful side dish. Make syrups and teas from elderflowers and berries. Experiment with wild garlic, nettles, or lamb's quarters in soups and stews. Myth 6. Foraging is only for rural areas. Many people associate foraging with forests, fields, and remote natural landscapes, dismissing it as impractical in cities. The reality: urban environments are surprisingly rich in edible plants. From fruit trees in public parks to wild herbs growing in sidewalk cracks, cities offer ample opportunities for foraging. Community gardens and urban farms further expand the possibilities. Examples of urban finds: mulberries, figs, and apples often grow in public spaces or neglected lots. Medicinal plants like plantain and chickweed are common in urban green spaces. Weeds like purslane and wild mustard thrive in city environments and are highly nutritious. Myth 7. Foraging is a trendy fad. Some dismiss urban foraging as a fleeting trend driven by social media influencers and hipster culture. The reality: foraging has deep cultural and historical roots. Indigenous peoples, immigrants, and low-income communities have long relied on foraging as a means of sustenance and connection to nature. Today's renewed interest in foraging stems from a growing awareness of sustainability, food security, and the desire to reconnect with ancestral practices. Honoring the tradition. Acknowledge and learn from the foraging practices of indigenous and local communities. Approach foraging with respect and curiosity, rather than treating it as a novelty. Use your foraging experiences to foster deeper relationships with the environment and your community. Myth 8. Foraging takes too much time and effort. With busy schedules, many assume that urban foraging is a time-intensive activity with minimal payoff. The reality: foraging can be as simple or involved as you want it to be. A short walk in your neighborhood park can yield edible treasures like clover flowers or wild mint. Over time, foraging becomes second nature, turning ordinary strolls into opportunities for discovery. Making it manageable. Dedicate just 15 to 30 minutes a week to explore a local green space. Incorporate foraging into your daily routine, such as during a walk home from work. Start small by focusing on a single plant or area to minimize overwhelm. Myth 9. Foraged foods are always healthy. While foraged foods are natural, some people assume that they're inherently healthy and safe to consume in any quantity. The reality: not all foraged plants are suitable for every individual. Some may cause allergic reactions, and others require specific preparation to be safe or palatable. For example, acorns must be leached of tannins before consumption, and certain wild mushrooms can be toxic if misidentified. Staying safe. Research each plant's properties and preparation methods before consuming it. Start with small amounts to test for potential allergic reactions. When in doubt, consult experienced foragers or reference multiple trusted guides. Myth 10. You need special equipment to start foraging. The idea that foraging requires specialized tools and gear can intimidate newcomers. The reality: foraging is one of the most accessible outdoor activities and requires minimal equipment. A pair of scissors, a reusable bag, and a guidebook or smartphone app are often all you need to get started. Basic toolkit: a small knife or scissors for harvesting, cloth bags or baskets for carrying your finds, a field guide or app to help identify plants, optional gloves for handling prickly or stinging plants, and a trowel for digging if needed. Embracing the joy of urban foraging. Urban foraging is more than just a means of finding free food. It's a way to reconnect with nature, foster sustainability, and explore your local environment. By debunking these common myths, we hope to inspire more people to try urban foraging and discover its many rewards. Whether you're picking dandelion greens for a salad or harvesting mulberries for jam, foraging offers a unique opportunity to engage with your surroundings in a meaningful way. So grab a bag, step outside, and see what edible treasures your city has to offer. With a little knowledge and respect for the environment, urban foraging can become a safe, sustainable, and deeply fulfilling part of your life.